Hello there. Doing something a bit different today. We're going to do a sketch in paint, which is basically a painting, I think, is what some people might call it. We're viewing Horse Guards Parade, and we're viewing it from St James's Park. Horse Guards Parade is an interesting kind of formal square in London, kind of open on one side, closed on three sides by governmental buildings. Originally, it goes all the way back to Elizabeth I, so we're talking 400 more years ago, and it was a jousting tournament area. It's where the knights would run up and down with lances and bash each other. In the last 50 or so years, it's been used for the Queen's birthday celebrations, called Trooping the Colour. So it's where a whole load of military chaps walk up and down and ride their horses and do all that formal stuff. Today it's merely an interesting backdrop to a rather attractive tree. I'm here with a group of other artists or drawers called the London Plein Painters. It's quite fun to join groups like this because it's very friendly, very sociable to join a group of other people and meet up for a day in the sun or the rain and just see what you want to draw, what you want to paint. Some people sketch, some people paint. It's a very kind of open and you do whatever you want. I'm choosing to do this as a crossover between a sketch and a painting. I'm literally doing this as a test. This is an A2 sheet, so it's larger than my normal A3 size, twice the size. And I'm starting with a pastel crayon sort of outline just to give myself the general positioning of things. And then I'm going in with a very thick acrylic marker. These are 10mm thick sort of nibs to kind of give an instant impact, a big kind of bang effect, so that within minutes I've got myself enough of a drawing that I know it's something I want to do. Then once I got to that point, I'm trying to become sort of more observational. I'm looking at the lighting, I'm looking at the quality of the buildings, I'm looking at the structure of the tree, and I'm really trying to respond to that, this time using paint. Generally, you wouldn't really want to start a drawing with the assumption you're going to be using multiple media, or mixed media as it's often called in the artistic world, which means you're starting with all kinds of different things and assuming they're all going to blend and be happy together. And of course, if you're not comfortable with things not working out, that can be a problem, because sometimes you start with charcoal and then when you apply some paint and the charcoal muddies up the paint, for example. That kind of thing can happen quite regularly. So you've got to kind of have a relaxed view of this. I'm starting with the acrylic nibs. I'm then going into acrylic paints. I'm using Liquitex acrylic gouache, which allows me to do a very sort of blocky, thin, washy kind of motion, which I'm using to kind of allow the blue paper to shine through, so that it has a sort of watercolor wash effect. And I'm really not worried about how leaving brush marks, visible brush marks, because I'm going to be working over the top. And actually, to be fair, the brush marks can often enhance, they can bring a texture. So I'm trying to be as sort of confident and quickly sort of applying the colour as quickly as possible. Most of this initial colour is, at least in the reds, is a sort of fluorescent colour, actually designed to imply that sense of hot light. And I will sort of jump backwards and forwards between the acrylic gouache, the acrylic pens, but for the majority of the painting going ahead, we're going to be using oil paint. So there does need to be an awareness that oil paint and wet acrylic paint work well as long as the wet acrylic paint is dry. Acrylic paint dries very fast, and then oil paint going over the top works incredibly well. But you want to be careful not to mix oil paint with wet acrylic or wet acrylic ink. So there has to be a certain kind of caution here. You don't want to muck up your brushes. Now I'm sitting on a low stool here with palettes to each side of me. Acrylics on one side, oils on the other, so I don't confuse myself. It actually works surprisingly conveniently. And I have the board on a sort of couple of easel legs just to prop it up. Oil paint's the most amazing material. It feels different on the brush than anything else. When you paint with oils, it is different than painting with acrylics. It's different than painting with gouache. There's something about it. It's like when you meet an actor or a film star. They look like different people. It's not about their look, it's about their confidence and their self-belief and the fact that they are of a different kind of person. That's how oil paint feels to me. When you have it on your brush, it feels like you've got empowerment. There's a sense of quality, there's a sense of tradition and history and pedigree and heritage, and it makes you feel different. It's like having that really high quality pen. It's oil paint, everything, every color you choose, even if you can choose a relatively cheap brand, they all feel dignified and ready to go straight off the bat. So they're wonderful things to paint with, albeit there's negatives that come with all kinds of paint, and in the case of oil paint, it takes a long time to dry. This painting took a couple of weeks to dry. I'm painting on paper here while a very thin card, so it does dry quicker than it might normally do if it was on canvas, but it does have a certain difficulty when it comes to carrying a painting home. In the case of this, I had to kind of loosely roll it, put it in a black bin bag and carry it home by hand, so it didn't damage anybody's clothes, because it would have been very wet were it to be bashed up against on the bus. So you see me here mixing the kind of the colours of oil and the colours of the acrylic, which is something no one else should try and do. It's a completely foolish thing to do, but I enjoy taking those kinds of risks. I enjoy the idea of the acrylic being what amounts to an underpainting, so it's there underneath the oil, and the oil then rides over the top of that colour and enhances it and kind of bounces off it. So there's a sort of shorthand that comes with using acrylic, specifically the acrylic pen. You feel as if it feels different. It's a sketching tool, and the dignity then of the oil paint, and the fact you can sort of brush oil paint on in a very casual way, in a very there's a combination. You can apply oil paint as a dark and confident line, but you can also apply it very wet, almost like watercolor wash, in a kind of a sort of almost like a fog effect, or the glare of light effect. You'll see that in various points in this painting. It has such an ability to kind of lay down dynamism and a drama and an impact, that it just feels so exciting. Now, when I'm painting this painting, I'm having a bit of a sort of a dilemma between what is the subject. The subject is the tree, of course. It's always going to be the tree, but I'm so loving the background, which I want to be sort of fading backwards a bit and sort of visible but not dominant in the eye. But I'm also loving what I'm seeing in terms of the turrets and the structures of the roofs, all the different textures and forms. So I'm kind of doing this job of dancing backwards and forwards between the foreground of the tree and giving it dominance, so it pops forward, mostly using, of course, the colour, which is a response to how the sunlight is hitting it, but also so it pops off the page and becomes the subject, whatever happens. But I'm also looking at that background and continuously wanting to just enhance it and add to it. So there's a bit of a to and fro going on. And actively, of course, I'm doing it knowingly and enjoying that to and fro. I don't quite know how the end sketch painting will work, but I'm enjoying exploring it. Even the act of painting the tree this large with this intensity of colour, that in itself is an experiment that is there's no guarantees this kind of thing ends up being something that anybody would appreciate. I mean, you might be looking at it now and thinking, what on earth is that weirdo doing? That doesn't make any sense. That tree's not red. No, it's not, but it's bathed in hot light. It's a warm sun that's hitting it, and I'm trying to sort of support the tree in talking about its character, like a personality, like a person is standing there, and I'm trying to give it that energy that I kind of pick up from that tree. It's just one tree of many. There's nothing particularly special about it, but I want it to be heroic in the view, but I want the buildings to also have their moment, and I'm balancing those two things. So the final painting GSM. And the final view, and again, part of the fun bit of a day like today with lots of other artists around us doing other things, is you get to meet up at some point and everybody kind of has a throwdown. It's called. Everybody puts their paintings down, and we all chat about how we experienced the day, and like arty people do, we discuss techniques and we discuss tools. Who has the best easel? Who caught the light in the most interesting way? And it's just a really fun, positive little meetup. So thank you to the London plein air painters. It was a brilliant day. So thank you for staying to the end. That's very kind of you. I hope you've enjoyed the painting. It worked out okay. Why not go out tomorrow and buy yourself just one beautiful oil paint and enjoy yourself.